On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
What I do is as little as possible. And hopefully, hopefully by the end of this time together, we're going to convince you out there who are listening to us to do less more often. That's the challenge today. I think that too many of us are waiting for somebody to give us permission to be who we're supposed to be.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast, coming back to you here today with another king on the stage. My brother JR Rivera. How we doing?
Man, can I be a prince? Can I just change things? Can I just be a prince, please? The prince of podcasting.
There you go. PP, baby, Prince of Podcasting. My man, JR, you you just told me just super nonchalant before I hit the record button that you've been podcasting since 2008. Was I in diapers in 2000? No, I'm just kidding. You've been doing this a long time, man. And so I think king is the proper term, my man. Tell us what you do in the podcast space.
Man, what I do is as little as possible. And hopefully, hopefully by the end of this time together, we're going to convince you out there who are listening to us to do less more often. That's the challenge today. All right.
Okay.
Let's get into that.
Can
But
we get
I
into that?
am I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be here, man. And the only reason that you and I are sitting together is because I was on the other side of the speaker or the headphone or whatever you want to call it many,
Yeah.
many years ago, trying to figure out business, entrepreneurship, leadership, all of that. I didn't know anything about that. And I was running my own real estate business and doing a terrible job at it. And fortunately, I found audiobooks and podcasting, and I started learning and learning and learning. And it's been an amazing journey where I've had amazing mentors who have lifted me up, taken me to new heights. And I've been able to pay that forward by using the tool that we're using right now, podcasting, to be able to bring the right words from the right person at the right time into someone's ears to be able to change everything in their lives just from one new idea. So what I'm doing as little as possible. I'm just changing lives.
Just just changing lives. No big deal. The seed of a new idea or the change of someone's perception or their perspective is really a seed of two minds coming together. The book that both you and I read, it says that when two come together, then there I will be. And so
Yeah.
there's a another perspective that always comes from being with someone else, like you're talking about, or listening to us, but just being in a room where there's other people who want to win or be better or want to learn or want to give can be the seed that you're talking about. And so where does this understanding come from? And don't think you're off the hook because you haven't really told us yet what Podcast Factor does. I'm gonna circle back to it. Don't you think you're off the hook here, Mister I Changed Lives. But where did that come from? Where did that seed come from for you where you're like, no, 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 I just want to like deposit this one little piece because that's all it takes.
I just feel lucky, man, because what we're kind of dancing around is our faith. I
Okay.
am a Catholic. I guess they call us cradle Catholics, but faith is always a part of our lives, but not necessarily the center of our lives. And
Sure.
so through the ups, through the downs, the one consistent in my life is Jesus is there, God the Father's there, open arms, welcoming me home, no matter how bad I've been, how ashamed I feel, how unimportant I think I am. And so I feel like what happened, and I can bring it back to the business part since you won't let me let that go. But during COVID, there was this time where we were not supposed to go outside. They told us, stay inside and lock your doors and don't look out at other people. And I thought, man, how could fresh air and vitamin D3 be bad for me? So I used to go walking every day, right? And I have a lake outside of I'm in downtown Orlando. So I have Lake Eola. I get to walk around that. What a blessing, right? And so
Mhm.
one day I was out there trying to figure out what what can I do, right? Because the world was in a bad place and people there was darkness everywhere and people were scared. We couldn't be with our families and a lot of people went downhill during that time. And I was fortunate, man. I had started a new challenge. I was doing 75 hard, so I quit drinking, was taking care of my body. I had all this clarity and it hit me one day. walking around the lake, and I have it written down because I know I will butcher this if I don't have it written in front of me.
Yeah.
As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Peter and Andrew, casting into the sea. They were fishermen. Come after me, and I'll make you a fisher of men. There it is. He gave me the answer right there. Jonathan, JR, the work that you're doing right now, you're fishing men to God's light. And whether that's the conversation that you and I are having right at this moment, and one of you out there hears something that changes your life, or whether it's the work that I do with the experts at the podcast factory, changing lives every day, I am fishing God's men to Him, bringing them to the light, showing them the love, having the open arms. And dude, that's my job.
Yeah.
That's what I get to do every day. How could I not get out of bed stoked that God gave me this gift?
I guess it's humility to find pleasure in that, and I don't know if that necessarily would be the first thought for most, and so I guess the humility that I see in that is, it would be pretty easy to, I don't know, put ourselves in a place where it appears that we've done it all, and there's a lot of things that you described that you did in that process, even of that revelation. You chose to go outside and walk even though maybe you weren't supposed to. You chose to, bring a pen and paper and write it down. I mean, there's a lot of partnership going on there. And so I think that there's, this perspective switch, or the depositing of things that we get to put in people's brains, whether it be about business or podcasting or faith, require both and, right? It's a both and story. It's not just, oh, I heard something, faith or not faith related, and then great, my life changed. It was, oh, I heard that one thing that JR said, and then it stuck with me. I went back to my desk, I wrote it down. I thought about it the next couple of days. I talked with my wife about it. I just couldn't get past it. I started implementing it in my business or in my morning routine or whatever the nugget is. There's we have to walk it out, right? There's a double-edged sword here. And so I guess I love what you're saying, and I want to set you up for my next question with the like you came to that place, but why were you there? Why were you walking? Why were you even open to a new perspective change in that moment?
I want to piggyback off of what you said. We're searching for wisdom, and wisdom doesn't come from reading the word. I mean, we have a 4,000-year-old manual on how to live life, all available to us, right? But reading the word is not the end of it all. It's reading the word and, like you said, thinking about it, planting that seed in your head, and then the other part that is most important is living the word. So doing the acts, doing the work. When he calls to you and he shows you a way, you you might actually have to pick up and do something, right? And that's the thing that I think separates people who are living quiet lives of desperation from those of us who are living lives of limitless possibility is picking up and doing the work. And so I feel like I'm blessed because I'm so dumb. I don't ask too many questions. Once I get an answer, I just try it. I just try it. And I was always like that, man. When I quit, I was an electrician out of high school and I had a journeyman and he told me how to do something. I'd try it and learn it. Whether I knew what I was doing or not, at least I was getting the muscle memory. And I think that's where most of us fall short is we'll read 10 books, we'll watch 100 YouTube episodes, we'll listen to the podcast, but we don't
Yep.
roll up our sleeves and do the work. And here you've touched on it a couple times, and I want to go even further. It's not just hearing it and doing it, but guys like us, guys like you and I, we are control freaks. We control our schedule, we control what we put into our body, we control everything, and then we start thinking we're in control, and what that does is make us miserable. So here's an idea. Here's a life-changing idea if you choose to accept it, ponder it, use it. Let go. Let him drive. Surrender. This is the part that I had been missing for so many years, such a high achiever. And every time I hit a goal, bro, it was empty. No matter how big the goal, how amazing the accomplishment, when I hit it, I became depressed.
Mm,
I became depressed when I got what I wanted. So I had to start questioning, what, what do I really want?
yeah.
What am I wanting the right stuff? And that's when I started realizing that maybe my plan, maybe JR's plan wasn't so good. Maybe I should let go and give God's plan a try. And my life has been infinitely better since I did that.
You kinda answered my question there as far as, like, maybe why you were in that position. It was you control related, and you felt like you were, there. You had arrived, achieved, gotten the things that you were looking for, but maybe actually hadn't. There's people listening right now that I'm sure feel the same or have felt the same. And so for you in that moment, describe it for me because they're gonna have to have that moment kind of like, drawn out for them that then shortly after that came new revelation. And so oftentimes it's in that dark place that you're describing that then we if we press into it, then it's like, oh, then we're able to see the light because it got so dark. So for you, it was like, okay, based in control and some of these other things as far as achievement based. But but why had that driven you so far this way to where you just had to have something different?
Because all that was followed by suffering and emptiness. And I think that's what motivates all of us. And that's what I'm telling you, dude. I told you I was an electrician and I worked at some condos. We're here in Florida. So Ponce Inlet, anybody in Central Florida knows Ponce Inlet, kind of hoity toity, nice place. I worked in condos over there right after high school, making about $6 an hour, building those condos for the rich people who would eventually inhabit them. And I sat back there thinking, huh, one day I'm gonna have one of these. Really? $6 an hour, boy? One day you're gonna have one of these? I kept that dream. I kept that dream for 20 years till I got my condo here in downtown, the exact unit that I had visualized and meditated on and prayed for. There it was. And I got sad. I got sad, man. And I started drinking and drinking a lot. Dude, downtown, we can do bar crawls. All you have to do is walk up and down, and you can stop at 10 bars and get drunk. And I was getting drunk all the time. And I was trying to fill an empty spot. And I didn't know what that empty spot, why it was there, what it was, or any of that. All I knew is I wasn't satisfied. And no matter what I did, I couldn't be happy. And I started looking at it and saying, maybe I need to ask different questions. And the first one, and this is how I mean, the first way that I ever changed my life as a young man in my 20s, even while I was an electrician, was going from a 135-pound skinny weakling to a 175-pound muscle guy. Ooh, I can do that by nutrition, by exercise, all that stuff. So I went back to what I knew at that time. I had a friend that put me on the challenge of 75 hard, and I said, well, this sounds like getting in charge of my body again. That's probably what I need right now. So it was a detox from the alcohol. It was a detox from the bad eating. It was a detox from the distractions. And during that time, space opened up, and that space was filled by God's light. I realized what I was really missing. And from there, it really started building. That was my probably my most recent renewal because we have renewals through our whole life, right?
That's right. That's right. We re-sign up for things. Okay, so let's I wanna take this. You've hit us, square, just boom, David and Goliath right between the eyes. I only say that because my 4-year-old son is just completely obsessed right now. He's always swinging a sling. I'm constantly Goliath, and he's constantly trying to hit me between the eyes. But
Nice.
you really did. You hit us right between the eyes here. Some fairly heavy stuff right at the beginning. I wanna lighten up a little bit. I want you to actually tell us what Podcast Factory does, and don't worry, we're gonna bring all this full circle.
Yeah. So that's the thing is I've had some absolutely brilliant friends and mentors in my life who have helped me, who have given me new perspective, given me a new way to look at things, lifted me up. And so when I got a chance to pay it forward, I was doing podcasts with these guys. Like I said, I think we mentioned it earlier. I've been podcasting since '08, so it was pretty early on. And not as many people knew how to do it. It wasn't as easy as it is now. And so I was collecting my friends who had helped me and say, hey, let's record some conversations. Let's put them on the air and maybe we'll help some people. Maybe we'll help some people get some answers. And most importantly for me, it was me elevating the people that I knew to be real, that I knew could help, and saying, "Hey, more people got to hear this. More people got to hear this." And so it started with that, just me. And at that time, bro, I was on 7 days a week on a different show. I was co-hosting different shows every day. I don't know how I kept that schedule, but it was, I guess it was a labor of love. But eventually people started asking me, "Hey, I heard you on a show with so and so. Can you help me?" And that was one of those things where it's like, "Oh, oh, this could be
It's
a
things.
business." Yeah, so maybe people pay for this, and people started paying us for it. And so in 2015, we opened up the Podcast Factory as an agency to the public, where we are helping experts with a message and a mission connect with their exact right listeners. And ever since then, it's just been fun, picking the people that we get to work with and helping enlighten all our listeners.
Cool. Well, I appreciate that. And so let's talk about, the journey here. So you kind of gave us a little bit of the backdrop, you podcasting with some friends, really just having the desire to help elevate their story. Mm. For you, why did that come naturally? Like, okay, so we are just talking, we're buddies, you're telling me your story, and I'm like, oh, more people need to hear this. I need to create a podcast to amplify your story. That's in essence what I heard you just say. So why were you driven towards that, do you think? To amplify their story?
Well, there's a couple things. I had the skills to do it when nobody else had the skills, so it was a new angle, and it was also a way for me to get closer with these friends. They had helped me, so I could help them. It was also the mission piece is, hey, really, this has helped me truly. And if more people hear it, we can help them. So it's always from a place of giving. I guess I'm more generous than I think. But it was really for that. And then realizing that it was a potential business was just the next gift to me. Oh, I could get, oh, okay, we can make money doing this. And then to where we are today is I start looking for people that I wanna work with, and it's not that we're out there trying to do podcasts with everybody. I'm looking for guys like us, guys of faith, guys with families, guys with missions, guys with the ability to change somebody's life, because then I get to do that, right? It's just fun for me to get into their business and help them get their messaging better, help them get their targeting better, help all of that stuff, that marketing that brings people in work better for them because they deserve it, number one. And number two, because our listeners, they deserve it. You guys out there who are listening to us, you deserve the best. And that's why we do this.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's interesting. Some people have asked me the same question, how did the podcast start or what, who do you serve, that type of a thing. And it's like, well, actually what I did was I did this other thing first. I started the mastermind and I just had a bunch of people who wanted to be part of what we were doing, but we didn't have it set up for smaller business owners at the time. And so it was like, well, I'll just interview people that are either in the group or other successful people and we'll just help them that way. And that way I can help lots of them. And like you're saying, labor of love, it takes so many hours, especially at the scale of every single day like you're talking about. But when I look back on it now, I love the language that you said. The next gift was the fact that it was a business and people were willing to pay money. It's like you look back and the gift of podcasting in general has just been relationships, shaking hands. For you, that's exactly what you just described, that this whole thing started with relationships. But I
Yeah.
think the message, at least that I'm balling up between the 2 of us and our both of our experiences for the listener right now is whether it's through a podcast or not, obviously, we both believe that podcasting would be great for them, but shaking the other person's hand with no like, I have no construct here. Like, I'm gonna interview JR, we're gonna get some amazing stuff flowing here. The listeners are gonna get value. Hopefully, the whole process is valuable to JR, but what? What happens after that? I don't know. But now I know JR. And that right there sounds surface, like, "Oh, I don't know if that's worth it," until you do it enough times and you're like, "Talk to us about that, the relationship piece of podcasting."
I am thinking back and I feel like I wouldn't be here without all these relationships. Because, like I said, it was people who have mentored me, people who I wanted to be mentored by, people who I've done business with, people who I have helped. is really Jim Rohn says you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So me, guy from Deltona, Florida. Yeah, you never heard of it. That's right. Not Daytona. I said Deltona. How the hell am I
You
gonna
did
meet
not misspeak.
anybody? How am I gonna meet anybody? And this was a
Yeah,
tool to meet people and to bring value. And it just so happens, like you said before we got on the air, hey, this is gonna be around forever. Well, forever is a long time. So I think it's amazing that we're able to have these discussions, share these ideas, and continue to impact lives, not just today with you listening to it right now, but you, the guy who's listening to this 3 years later, and it's still relevant. It's like, "Holy cow, this is so amazing," and this is, to me, really about the legacy. When I start thinking about it, it's the legacy, and I tell our clients the same thing. When they get stuck, I say, "Well, what would you want your son or daughter to know about this particular topic? What would you want them to know about the way you're thinking or the way you look at the
so
world? Because this can be something that you hand off to them." And I do it with my son. I do it with my son. Is sometimes I let him listen to these things, or sometimes I let him sit in on an interview so that he can get these messages earlier than I did. But part of it is a legacy piece, and the other part is the relationships. Incredible, because, like I said, I'm a kid from Deltona. How am I going to meet people? I don't know. I can go to the library, get some biographies, and maybe get some cool thinking that way. Or nowadays we have YouTube, we have podcasts, we have all different ways to elevate the people we're surrounding ourselves with.
incredible. I think about, I mean, legacy came to my mind as well, but you went ahead and said it, so I'm thankful for that. When I think about your clients that you're just describing and pulling their children in, I personally think about my grandkids. Going back, pulling out the archives of MP4, and like, what was grandpa talking about, And maybe I'm not even around anymore. Maybe it's great grandpa. I don't know. But that piece right there that just has never been possible before. Like, I can't pull up the videos necessarily of my grandfather, who I don't even know, you know?
Yeah.
But my
Yeah.
grandkids, my grandkids will know me from this conversation right here. They're
Isn't
gonna
that
hear me talking
crazy?
about them right now, but 50 years from now. I
And
just get so
think
jacked up about that, dude. I don't know, maybe I'm just super weird, but does that kind of fire you up too a little bit, man?
this is it, man. I told you, it's like I have a morning ritual. So I had an old guy challenge me the other day at my men's small group, and he said, "I like to play this game where I think as if somebody was watching me from when I wake up and get out of bed in the morning, how long would it take them to realize that I'm a Catholic man?" And so then you start thinking about your morning, your day, when did you pray? Did you, all of that. And I like that idea. And the reason it made me feel good is because I hop out of bed, I start the coffee machine, and I go straight to a rosary, and then I read the Bible, and I have that. That's the first thing in my morning. So it wouldn't take more than 15 minutes for somebody to know that. But inside of that program, I'm always reading these books, these daily devotionals and stuff like that. And sometimes my son comes out and I get to share them with him. He sees me highlighting, tabbing. What are you doing, Daddy? I mean, you read those all the time. I said, "Yeah, but I'm getting these ready for you." Huh?
Mm.
You're getting them ready for me? Yeah, so that when I hand these to you and you start using them, that I have areas highlighted and tabbed so you can know what I'm thinking, what I think is important, and so you can get those lessons quicker. The same thing as what we're doing with this podcast or any other way that we're passing our legacy.
Yeah. Hey, kings and queens, Chaz Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. It's huge, man. I think the listener should just hit the pause button and go back and replay what you just said. The impact of that. And you're right. This is just a video digital format. It matters is I guess the point. And I've had several people here on the show, guests or even friends that I have that don't have children, but their legacy just looks like it's always exponential impact. And that's what I've learned is that we all of us have exponential impact or the possibility of. It just might look a little different. For me, maybe it's, the obsession with my grandkids. And of course, I'm impacting other people as well. But for someone who doesn't have children, it's their community, it's the church, it's I had a person on the show that doesn't have kids, and it's like they're sending people like all over the world to study abroad, and he has a target of 1,000,000 students, and
Wow.
for whatever reason, that was part of his story, and it just impacted him when he was able to see other things in the world, and so that's his legacy. He's going to send 1,000,000 kids to different parts of the world to study different things. It was just like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So what
Amazing.
what do you think the value for the listener right now? Like, why should they be thinking in such big terms? Like this other guy I had on the show thinking 1,000,000 kids, going across the world studying. You're talking about handing things off to your son. I've talked about doing, deals and business, building things with my grandkids on a business side. Why should someone right now listening to us for the first time thinking about legacy, why should this be important to them?
Well, I think that if you're here with us right now, you're not the 95% of people out there who take the status quo as it is. You want more. You want more. Maybe you're feeling unsatisfied. Maybe you're feeling like you have more to give this world. And that's why it's important. And this is a lesson I learned very early on. Like we said, I was an electrician. I climbed the ranks very quickly as a young man. At about 23 or 24, I was running jobs. I was the foreman. I was running crews and I had the blueprints and the van to prove it. And I was running guys that were older than me, guys
Mhm,
that were older than my dad.
mhm.
And that's when I had to ask myself, is this it? Is this all I'm supposed to be doing? Wiring up buildings and running jobs? Is this it? Is this all I have to offer the world? And that's the question that I urge you to ask yourself every time you get stuck. Is this it? And write it down, journal it. Is this it? Am I supposed to be doing other things? Am I happy? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? If we do that more and more often, we can get closer to who we are meant to be and do the work that brings us purpose and fulfillment. But if you don't ask the question, if you're like most people saying, "Yeah, this is it. I got the life. Yeah." That's it. You're
Yeah.
done. But switch those words around, turn them into a question. Ask yourself, is this it? Am I meant for more? What do I want more of? And I think that's what you can take away today is just being able to ask yourself that question and honestly answer it. And if you're not living up to your potential, if there's things that you want more of, then the awareness is the first step to getting it.
Yeah. Recognizing the desire, the awareness for whatever that is more, and then, like you said earlier, action to go after it. Going back to your story just a few minutes ago, how you were walking around the lake and, the 75 hard had released some space for you to be able to think a little differently. You had a revelation and then you started to take action. In essence, there's one of these re up moments that you were just talking about. The listener right now might be thinking bigger now, more legacy oriented, maybe more purpose driven based on the thoughts that you've just given them. But what did they go do? You had that revelation and you wrote it down and then you started doing things differently, you said a couple of years ago. But for them, thinking now, they've just heard you that I need to be more purposeful. That's why Chaz is so tied to his grandkids because it's really purposeful. It's what makes my heart come alive. Okay. And so they're listening right now as a listener going, what makes my heart come alive? And so maybe they figure that out. They've just taken your suggestion, they've written it down, they've spent some time on it. Now what?
You got to have faith, but faith without work is useless. And so I'm positive that when you have that moment that lights you up and brings you joy, that the follow through piece of even taking one step closer to it is going to be what begins to bring you peace. And I'll give you a perfect example. I went to a retreat this weekend. It's called the Welcome Retreat at my dad's church, and we spent 2 days going into scripture and hearing people's stories and sharing and all that. And the guys loved me over there because I was young. Dude, I'm not young. They were just old. Okay. But they loved me and they were like, man, we wish we could have you here. You'd be great energy and great for this. And yeah, okay, well, dude, it's an hour and a half away from my house, so that's not really going to happen. But what if I brought this to my church? What if I gave people here at my parish the experience that I just had that was transcendent? What if I did that? Okay, so there's the purpose, right? There's the desire. And then how do you follow it up with action? Well, the first thing I did was when I got here, I talked to one of the guys that used to run the ministries, and I'm going to grab coffee with him and just find out what it takes.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's one step. The next step is I found out Father John Bosco was the one that brought it to that church. He's in Melbourne. I can get one of the guys to connect me with him. The next step is who are the pieces? So just start thinking about what's the one step. And the one step, the first step was, hey, contact this guy who ran ministries and just have coffee with him. And that's the first step. Doesn't have to be anything big. It just has to be a step in the direction to the light.
That's right. It's good. Yeah, you've referenced several things through the show here of, we've whether you realize it or not, we've been weaving in and out of, biblical language and also like Think and Grow Rich language, and which is great because all the success principles that Think and Grow Rich does an amazing job of outlining. You can find them, but
Shocking.
shocking, right? But here's the reality: I love that book, and I'm a student. Okay, and so I loved how you snuck in faith there. I know you didn't sneak it in, but you did a little bit. You're like, the desire, the thought, the initiation of it was one thing. Okay, fine. That's also called desire and Think and Grow Rich. And then it's followed by the plan, which is obviously what you follow with action. Okay, cool. But snuck into that equation is faith. And it's not just the initial belief, which is kind of tied to the desire. You have this desire, it's more than a want. It's like, ooh, maybe that could happen for me. There's a little bit of budding of belief, but faith is going, no, I see it. And so now I'm going to put the plan together. I'm going to start taking action. And so even though you slipped it in there, kind of like not, not a big deal, it is the actual equation. This is actually how it works. It's desire, which kind of ties in with belief, faith, building the plan, doing the plan, right?
Works. Yeah, that's Think and Grow Rich. You very, very nice how you brought that together.
I mean, I'm just repeating back what I heard JR say, you know what I mean?
He's decoding for us.
He's decode yeah, that's right, that's right. I have been known as a decoder, so alright, so here we are, you've told them to just take the next step. Sometimes they don't have the whole plan, right?
You don't need the whole plan.
Don't need the whole plan.
The whole
Just
plan
need
is
the next step.
bad for you. It holds you back.
It's so good. Give us just another sentence on that. I mean, I can't pass that over, holy moly.
Well, that's what we talked about earlier. Do less more, right? So, what's the least thing I can do? Text a friend, talk to my wife, listen, read the instruction manual for the book. I don't know what it is. What's the next low low hanging fruit? Because if you can just get the next little step, which is not a leap, it's not a jump. You're not going to be out of breath. You're not going to get hurt. It's just like you can stumble forward and still do it.
Just forward is the point, like, forward.
Well,
You can
you know
stumble.
what? No, and you can stumble backwards too, but if you want it, the faith is what's gonna pull you back to where you need to be, and that's why I keep talking about the light and the dark is this bringing you closer to what you want or further, and that's for everything in your life, every action you take when you start being the observer of your thoughts and your actions, is this bringing me closer or further? It's not complicated, guys. You can ignore it if you want, but it is that simple. Is this bringing me closer to my grandkids' legacy or further? It's a very simple thing.
Yeah, it's a filter. I used to ask on this very show hundreds of episodes ago. I used to say, How do you make good decisions? You know, you've given us a couple of good decisions that you've made. You've actually given us a couple of bad ones already just in our natural conversation here. But the convert or the question of how do you like what's the process of making a good decision? How do I sit down and think about the 4 steps to making a good decision, whatever that looks like? And oftentimes, if I could summate all those answers, it would be decide what you want, and then does this thing that I'm considering help me get it or not? And if it does, I do it and I go all in, or if it doesn't, I just don't even consider it. I close the book immediately and I move it to the side and throw it away for that, just completely disregard. You want to speak to that for a second?
I think that too many of us are waiting for somebody to give us permission to be who we're supposed to be. I
Yeah,
know that
I agree.
if you went to school, if you went to college, especially, that could be burdening you. And I'm going to bring it back. Be here. Listen closely. Sit down and get ready for this. Let go. Surrender. Let it go. You don't have control of any of it, right? All you know is where you want to be. And if you take the actions to get there, you're going to get there. If you don't, you won't. So, how badly do you want it?
Yeah. The thing that makes me think of, which I'll parlay this into the next part of the conversation, which I think is great. You've already talked about your family a little bit, but for a long time coming up until, not that long ago, maybe 5 or so years ago, really in the last 3 years, though, I said that my family was important. It's not that I was disengaged or not around. I've always been around. I've always tucked my kids in. We've always read the Bible right before bed and prayed together. But there were things that I wasn't doing that I should have been doing or putting it on the calendar, just more intentional, right? And so what it came down to though was what you just said is I wanted to do those things. I just didn't want it bad enough, or I didn't want it enough. I loved them. I just didn't love them enough to make it high enough on the priority list or to put it on my calendar, fill in the blank, right? So I
Yeah.
want to parlay that into the question really is, I really don't believe in work life balance. I believe in work life obsession, and we've got to be all in all areas. But it's tough to get there if you don't currently know that reality. And so for you, how are you obsessed with your family as well as the business, as well as being on podcasts, as well as sharing the mission and being a fisher of men? Like there's a lot of things you got going on, and you're going all in. How do you do it all at the same time?
You don't. You don't do it at all at the same. You're gonna have to pick some priorities, friend. And I'm gonna tell you what a mentor showed me in the last year that was eye opening. I didn't realize I had this power, and he's like, here it is, right in front of you. And his name is Mark Sacosto Rubio. Look him up. He is a genius. But he talked about this idea, and I liked his ideas so much that I ended up doing a series of podcasts with him, the Double Double Show, actually, because I'm like, dude, we got to get this in people's hands. We've heard this before, right? And he had me flip the pyramid because most of us have this pyramid where at the very top is like our success when we're thinking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's that self-actualization and all that stuff. We put this at the very top. We put work and success. And when I make that next million, I will be happy. When I get that condo or that car, I will be happy. And we run around, work hard, and chase these things ultimately to find that they don't fulfill us, as I have witnessed for you in today's show. And what Marx told me was, why don't you flip the pyramid? So flip it upside. Can I do it upside down? Let's see. Upside. Flip the pyramid. So that little piece at the bottom, yeah, that's still finance. And what I had to do was figure out my priorities, what was important, and in what order of importance. And this is real, and this is going to sound weird, but at the very top, for me, the big fat part of that upside down pyramid, the base, is God the Father, faith, the Word. Everything I say, everything I do ought to be to glorify His name. So faith is number one. That's why I get up and I do my rosary and I do my readings. After that, and this was a struggle, most of us would put family after that, and I used to, but Mark's fixed me up. He's like, well, how important is your family? If you don't take care of your body, Wouldn't you be a burden to them? And I was like, snap, I would. So faith is first and then fitness. So my diet, my weightlifting, my exercise, all of that to make my body strong. And not only that, to glorify God because He gave me this. He gave
Right.
me this, and I need to keep it strong so that I can keep doing His work. So faith, family, or faith, fitness, and then family, right? Then my family, because now I've got God, I've got my body, I'm strong, and I'm able to give them everything. And then the leftovers go to work. That's it. The leftovers, whatever scraps I have left are what go to work. And this was hard as an alpha, as a striver, as an achiever to
Sure.
face. And if I hadn't surrendered before I got that information from Marx, which is the humility piece, I wouldn't have been open to this idea. But let me tell you something. When I turned that upside down, I started looking at my life differently. I started looking at what I really wanted. Do I really want another client? Do I really want another 100K? That's it's just not going to change my life. But do I want to wake up without an alarm clock? Do I want to spend my morning with my son? Do I want to go for walks around and homeschool him and spend the whole day with my family and then just do a little bit of work? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So figuring out those pieces for you. I'm not saying that my pieces are right. You got to figure out what your pillars, what your pyramid looks like. For me, it's faith, fitness, family. The rest goes to finances. And so all the decisions are made for me already.
Mhm.
Does this bring me closer or further from having an alarm clock this morning? Closer or further than having the morning with my son? Closer or further than having 9.5% body fat at 46 years old? Yeah, decisions are easy right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you've pre-scripted the decisions for yourself ahead of time, so that way it's easy in the moment. One quick thing, this might be a little bit derailing what the show is normally about, but what I have found in, let's just call it the church in general, is that there's a disconnect between what it means to be excellent in faith and what it means to be excellent, let's just call it in work. And so the upside down pyramid that you just gave, I love everything about it. What I hear some listeners hearing of the leftovers being for work is I just give it leftovers. Now I know I'm seeing what you're talking about is making those other things a priority. It doesn't mean that you don't have excellence in the leftovers because every part of you is excellent. Clearly, you're already making decisions around excellence. What I'm trying to, you know, help the listener understand because I see such a big gap. I've hired so many of these types of people that, let's just say they're Jesus followers, but they're the most terrible employees I've ever had. And it's like for me, the excellencies of Christ, it's not necessarily that I should be perfect at everything I do. That's not what I mean. But I should be a representation, whether I'm in my fitness time or whether I'm in my marriage or whether I'm being dad or whether I'm at my job or in this case running a business. It's a representation. And so talk to us about that because I didn't hear you say show up as nothing or as what leftovers might entail like I just it's the worst part. I just heard you say it's just a lesser part. Talk to us
Yeah.
about what that means for you but also excellent because I want to make the gap here.
So I love the way that you set that up. So thank you for
Yeah.
that. And it's true. Some people could have heard that as my crappy time goes to work. But when we're thinking of that upside down pyramid, at that very bottom, it's very small. It's very tight. It's got a point. It's almost like a laser rather
Okay.
than a shotgun. It's a laser. So when I show up to work, brother, I show up my freaking best.
Yeah.
When I get to talk to a client, did you hear that? I get to talk to a client. When I get to talk to a client, I'm bringing a game. How can I bring a game? Because I took care of my faith, I took care of my body, I took care of my family, and I am so amped up and so charged when I go to work that I am more efficient than I've ever been, more effective than I've ever been. And my clients are telling me this. When I show up on calls now, they're like, dude, you brought it. Yeah, I brought it inside 30 minutes. And the rest of the day was mine. Like today, you and I are talking. I've got two client calls, 90 minutes, 45 minutes each, and I'm gonna bring it for them.
Yeah.
But I already worked out. I already spent time with my family. I already did all that. So I poured into myself and came out strong. And so now I am an espresso version of Johnny.
I love that, man. Thanks for riding that to that little trail with me. I think it's important. Some people may not even have a clue what we're talking about, but it still remains that if we're gonna be if we're gonna tote the flag, right? We're gonna wear the Jesus sticker, if you will. I just like, man, I can't tell you how many times I've seen it wrongly represented, and it's just like, man, that's bummer, dude. You're bummer. It's all the right words, but the way you live your life doesn't line up, which
Yeah.
which then actually turns the message upside down for people who like they're trying to reach and they never can reach because they're looking at them like, I hear you, but I see you also. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, I pray to be a reflection of God's light. And that's look, I am not gonna sugarcoat it. I still think people are dumb when they screw up. I still curse to myself when somebody cuts me off in traffic. And I'm still working on knowing
You
that these people are God's children. These are my brothers, and
That's
that
right.
I need to show up like they are Jesus. So I'm still working on that. But I can tell you what, in the times where I'm really feeling that, in the times where I'm really rooted in it, it reflects in the world around me because everybody is attracted to the light.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. All right. I've got one last question here for you, JR. I want to know if you had the opportunity to reach back into time, tap the younger JR on the shoulder, and you whisper in his ear. What do you tell him?
STFU. Oh, you're such a bad Jesus freak.
Yeah.
Little
That's
Johnny, yeah,
that was
little
good.
Johnny was cocky. He talked too much. He was not doing enough listening. He
Mhm.
was not humble enough. And so, while it might be a bitter pill for him to swallow, if he could just STFU, look it up, and listen, I think that he would have done better sooner. But I wouldn't change anything right now because here you and I are together.
Yeah. Yeah, I received that message. I think that you've positioned yourself as a recovering achiever. And I don't know if we ever fully get away from that. I think that's our design, right? Like that's how God made us is to go after things. It just looks different for JR today as opposed to little Johnny.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of the journey. So I can appreciate that perspective as well. JR, how can the listener find you? Number one, if they're an entrepreneur, they're just like, I got to connect with this guy, everything he was saying, and just I need to hear more. Or if they need to contract services through the podcast factory, how can they find you and what's the easiest way?
I'm going to give you two resources. And number one, we talked about surrounding yourself with better people, better thinking, people who lift you up, inspire you, help you get to the next level. If you don't have enough of those people in your life, I got them in spades over at the podcastfactory.com/client showcase. Pick a mentor, take a journey, change your life. And if you are a man with a message and a mission that needs to reach more people, maybe I can help. The podcastfactory.com/call.
Love it. JR, you're incredible. Thanks for sharing your journey. And I love that it's not over. It's not done. You're not there. Still more to be written. Maybe we'll hear chapter 2 at another time. So blessings to you, to your family, your business, all your clients, everything that you're touching here this year, next. Thanks for being here, brother.
Peace be with you, brother.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe: that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.